If you are extremely unhappy in your marriage, I want you to listen to this video and I hope you find some freedom. Today is May 14th, 2024, and it would have been my 30th wedding anniversary if I were still married to my first husband. We divorced after 9.5 years of marriage. We did not have any children. We're both I'm very happily remarried. I think he is too. And I think we both have spouses now who are a better fit for us. But here's what I want to tell you. When I had been married, I don't know, at least 8 years or so, I was very, very lonely. The way that we like to spend our time is very different. I made him wrong for that a lot of the time. We didn't fight, but in my mind, I just thought, well, he ought to be home with me. A husband ought to be home with his wife. And I think if you asked him, he would probably say, well, a wife ought to be with her husband when he's out doing his hobby. If she would just have gone with me, then we would have been together. So we were just fundamentally different in how we wanted to be partnered. And that was expressed in multiple aspects of our marriage. Okay. It was, how we spent our time together, how we prioritized each other. And I'm not going to blame him. I'm just going to say we were unequally matched. All right. My grandmother, who knew this, who tried to tell me this a lot. And of course, when you're 20 years old, you don't listen to what the older people have to say to you because you think you're different. You think you know everything. But one day, I was, of course, had moved to Mississippi, been married 8 years, maybe 9 years at that time. I was laying on the floor in an apartment that we were in temporarily. Very sad, very alone. It was very late one night, very depressed. I had been wanting a divorce for a long time, but the fundamentalist Christian guilt that I was raised with told me that the decision of a 20-year-old to get married was God's will, and you were committing a sin if you didn't stay married forever. Ridiculous. Anyway, that's for another time. But I called my grandmother, who was my best friend. She was my person, and I didn't even say a word. I was on the phone with her. I was laying on the floor really late, and she said, "I know what you're going through." My grandfather had passed away. They were married just a few months short of 55 years. Okay, it was her only marriage. She said to me, "I know what you're going through. Do not stay married just so you can look back on your life and say, I was married 55 years. Be happy." Let me tell you again what she said. She said, "I know what you're going through." And I hadn't said a word. She could just hear it in my breath, I guess, on the other end. "Do not stay married for 55 years just so you can look back on your life and say, I was married for 55 years. Be happy." And in that sentence, she totally set me free, because I, of course, thought that she would be very disappointed in me if I divorced. She had paid for the wedding. It was not an inexpensive wedding. She was a very spiritual, independent Baptist, dress wearing, church, every time the doors open, church going person. And she was the most important person in my life. And I just thought I would be disappointing her. I knew, I would be disappointing my husband's family. My husband didn't drink. He wasn't an alcoholic. He didn't beat me. He had a job, all those things, which at that time I was trying to get bonus points for, but really, hello, those are the standards. So I began to re-examine my marriage, and I began to re-examine what it was that I was really unhappy about and who was I unhappy with. And the details don't matter, but here's what I want to tell you. Ask yourself, am I in love with who my partner really is? And can I choose this person like they are in their most natural self, when I'm not begging them to be different, when they are just left to be their natural self? Do I love them enough, and can I choose them enough? Are they a fit for me to choose them like they really are? Or am I in love with the potential that I see in them? Let me say that one more time. Am I in love with who my partner really is? Or am I in love with the potential that I see in them? And what I mean by that is, am I in love with the potential that I see that if they just change A, B, and C, then we can be really well partnered, well matched? If he would just come home at a reasonable hour and spend dinner time with me, then I'd be happy. If he would just ask me on a Saturday, what do you want to do today? Instead of going off and doing his hunting, fishing, rodeo, golf, whatever it is he does, where he's leaving me home alone. If he would just spend time with me, then I would be happy. If he would just be intimate with me on somewhat of a regular basis, then I would be happy. You know, if he would just remember my birthday or whatever it is that you are frustrated with your partner. And I'm using husband and he, but this is for men too. If your partner is not loving you and prioritizing you and actively taking actual action to daily be partnered with you in the way that you need to be partnered, can you live like that? Or are you going to make that person wrong because they are just fundamentally different than what you need? And if the answer is, I'm in love with the potential that I see in them, and you need to realize, baby, that they're never going to be it. Just like I would, you know, my first husband, he had a hobby that took him away from home a lot. I didn't want to participate in that hobby. I thought he should be home with me. I bet he thought I should be with him. So who's really wrong in that? I felt like he was wrong for a long time. But now, you know, we're towards the end of the marriage, I realized, well, why is he wrong? I'm just as wrong because I don't want to participate in that with him. So I can't resent him for not giving me what I want because I'm not giving him what he wants. And then it just kind of clicked and I was able to, you know, breathe a little easier. And I realized now I have to do the hard work of telling him I want a divorce and figuring out those next steps. And here's what I am here to tell you. Life gets better. It gets easier. Now, I didn't have children. I will tell you that. I did not have children, but my mother and father divorced when I was 6. And, you know, I have no idea what that marriage would have been like had they stayed in it. But I think it's much better to model healthy independence for children than unhealthy marriage for children. I know that is a fact. So I just want to say to you right now, if you are in love with the potential that you see in your partner, you should leave. Leave. But do it with dignity. Do it with respect. By all means, do the counseling. We did. Have the hard conversations. Give it a try. But if what you answer to the question, are you in love with your partner? Or are you in love with the potential you see in them? If you answer, I'm in love with the potential that I see in them, you should leave, because you don't actually love your partner. You love some unrealistic fantasy, imaginary person that you've created. And because your spouse is not that fantasy person that you've created in your mind, you're now mad at them because they are who they are and they're not this fantasy that you've created and you've made them wrong. And you are living in a vicious cycle of disappointment and frustration. And you are missing a fabulous marriage or relationship that's waiting for you out there. So that's what I have to say on what would have been my 30th anniversary. And I just firmly believe that my husband is much better partnered. They have so much more in common than he and I did. I got nothing negative to say about him. He's a wonderful guy. No negatives. But I am so much better partnered and matched now, because the way my husband wants to be partnered and the way I want to be partnered are the same. It's not because my current husband is better than my other husband was. You know, yes, we are better matched and we are better partnered, but it's not about making somebody wrong as a person. It's about seeing the person for who they really are. And then you need to make your decision. You cannot control the other person. You can bitch and moan and yell at them and nag them to do whatever it is you think you need them to do and be in order for you to be happy in your marriage. But then now you're happy and they're not happy. So quit all that and just move on and find your match. And don't stay married 55 years just so you can look back and say, I was married for 55 years. Be happy. P.S. I've been married 17 years and I still feel like I'm a newlywed. There is hope. It gets better. You got to do the hard work. All right.